This Harrison County school, just like many others in the state, are feeling the effects of the pandemic on teacher staffing and student achievement. I'm Christian Crone, and coming up on West Virginia Today, I'll be telling you more.
Schools across West Virginia were hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Bailey Tucker, and I'll take you to Marion County to meet a student who's trying to catch up.
Straight ahead, I'll be taking you to the Forest Festival, where members are taking advantage of the autumn weather and mountain views. I'm Carly Miner. West Virginia Today starts now.
West Virginia joins 13 states who've passed a near-total abortion ban, leaving some activists looking for new ways to provide people with resources. I'm Sean McAllister.
And I'm Bailey Tucker. The COVID-19 pandemic changed healthcare in our state as well. But what about the classroom? Some teachers say the return to normal has brought on even more challenges.
These stories and more coming up on West Virginia Today, a public affairs show produced by television journalism students right here at West Virginia University.
Studies show the number of women seeking an abortion during the pandemic declined, but as fewer women sought the care, legal battles over access waged from national courts down.
Last month, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned a ruling that for nearly 50 years prevented states from banning abortions. And just a few weeks later, West Virginia approved a ban of its own.
Reporter Laura Bonatesta and photojournalist Tolu Olasaji brings us the story of activists now speaking out across the state.
Dozens of students gathered on WVU's campus this month as part of a nationwide walkout for abortion rights. More than 50 of these events were held nationwide on college and high school campuses.
We see the actions of our politicians and acknowledge them as being reprehensible. I think that abortion is a human right, that is essential, that is a necessity. I think these are all things that I hope can be seen from this demonstration. Abortion is healthcare, and healthcare is a human right, and that you can't take a major human right away from half your population and expect people to be okay with it.
As a cisgendered male person, my voice in this matter is not really necessary. However, if it needs to be heard, it is simply to listen to all the women and trans women at West Virginia University.
WVU's walkout came nearly 1 month after the West Virginia legislature approved a near-total ban on abortions in the state.
On this question, there are 77 ayes, 17 nays, 6 members absent, 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage.
Women gathered at the Capitol for the vote and were removed from the galleries in the House as delegates spoke in favor of the ban.
And I am glad that we are able to save so many babies, and we are protecting, and we are not. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to observe these proceedings, but if members and guests cannot contain themselves, we will clear the galleries.
The ban has exemptions for medical emergencies and for rape and incest victims until 8 weeks of pregnancy for adults and 14 weeks of pregnancy for children.
Now that West Virginia has banned abortions, organizations like the Women's Resource Center on WVU's campus are connecting people with safe sex resources.
The Women's Resource Center collaborated with social work students to educate students and provide them with resources at a safe sex station.
So I think it's always been important, but it's definitely important now to not only give out sex education and like how to protect your body, but to also give out the information on the resources.
Now is the best time to be having this information, this education, and these resources available to help alleviate some of the pressure felt by our community.
Off campus, places like the Women's Health Center of Charleston are pointing people to online resources to access care. For West Virginia Today, I'm Laura Bonatesta in Morgantown.
Nearly 93% of households reported their children participated in some type of distance learning, Sean.
But this fall, students across the state are back in their classrooms. Most West Virginia counties are reporting positive case numbers in students in the single digits, Bailey, including Marion County.
And it's in Marion County that one family shared their story with photojournalist Maya Lance and me, detailing how COVID has impacted the social and academic growth of their children and their relief to be back in school.
13-year-old Casey Rogers is a bright, active 8th grader at East Fairmont Middle School in Marion County. But during the pandemic, like most kids, Casey did all of her learning at home, which she says was a major challenge.
I feel like I didn't learn as much as I should have, in like 6th and 7th grade because I wasn't there with the teachers in person to teach me exactly how to do it if I was struggling.
Students across West Virginia were forced to attend school virtually in order to help contain the spread of COVID-19. While this might have helped slow down the infection rate, educators say it had a negative impact on learning. In the 2020 school year, West Virginia test scores dropped for all grades in science, reading, and math. But education officials say things are getting better now that kids are back in the classroom. And teachers are working overtime to get their students back on track.
And right now they're saying that I think it's 44% of fourth graders are proficient in reading.
The pandemic also canceled sports, the arts, dances, and other extracurricular activities, putting students behind not just in their academic development, but social as well.
According to the National Library of Medicine, helping children maintain and nurture friendships should be a public health priority. Going to school helps children gain social competence and improves their mental health.
I like to talk to my kids. I like to see my kids. I like to see what they're doing. And I couldn't do that virtually.
Casey's mom, Carrie, says that 2 out of her 4 children were affected by not seeing their friends.
I do think that, it is an important part of them growing up, like having friends and being around others and learning how to act and how to be around people.
Conover asks that students who are still feeling the struggle let their teachers help.
A lot of our kids don't ask for help because they feel embarrassed or whatever. But at some point in time, we got to teach them how to ask questions or ask for help, even if it's private, see the teacher after class. I need extra help or something.
Casey says she is excited to fully experience her final year of middle school without so many COVID restrictions.
Because we missed out a lot on being with other kids, and I feel like now that we're back in school, we can get the full experience of my 8th grade year.
If your child is struggling in school, be sure to check out the West Virginia Department of Education's website for helpful resources.
Nationally, 53% of public schools reported being understaffed heading into this school year.
Teacher shortages are a problem for schools across West Virginia, but one that started long before the COVID-19 pandemic.
Reporter Christian Crone and photojournalist Blake Bowers take us to Harrison County to see how one school is coping.
In the 2020 to 2021 school year, every school in West Virginia was virtual at some point. And teachers across the state said the pandemic school years were some of the most challenging of their careers.
It really hurt. It was really sad because you have a certain expectation for your students in your grade level. So where I know where students should be socially in the 2nd grade and they are not there, it's sad. Like, it breaks your heart to see these kids that they don't know how to play with other children.
Across the state, classes have basically returned to normal for students at all grade levels. But for teachers, the stress is still very real.
Since that we've come back, they've added more and more and more to our plate. And we constantly feel like you're not good enough. And that's not okay, because we have to be confident in our job to teach our children.
But what complicated the situation even more was the shortage of qualified teachers in West Virginia classrooms, even before the pandemic began. Before the pandemic in West Virginia, there were 700 classrooms without qualified teachers. Today's studies show that there are over 1,000 classrooms without qualified teachers. A study from West Virginia University found that about 32% of teachers were leaving their jobs within their first 4 years in the classroom. And teacher Casey Archer, who has been at Johnson Elementary since 2014, says that high turnover rate and the lack of training in their replacements can impact the quality of education students receive.
There's a reason why we were trained with elementary education skills, with educational skills, behavior management, classroom management. And if you're just skipping that to come in here to fill a warm body, they're not going to have the right education within the classroom. And these are our leaders of tomorrow. These are the people that we're going to see leading our country, leading our city, leading our towns. And if they don't get the right foundation, I fear for us.
At Johnson Elementary, the teachers that are still here say they're committed to their students. For West Virginia Today, I'm Christian Crone in Bridgeport.
National test scores released September 1st from the U.S. Department of Education show students across the country are struggling. Reading test scores for 9-year-olds dropped by 5 points between 2020 and 2022 and 7 points in math. They're the largest declines in test scores the country has experienced since 1990. COVID-19 has had a major impact on children's education, and Sean is joined in the studio by an expert in the field to tell us more about the consequences. Sean?
Thanks, Bailey. I'm here with Associate Professor in WVU's College of Applied Human Sciences, Dr. Matthew Campbell. Dr. Campbell, thanks for joining us here today.
It's good to be here.
Well, I want to start out discussing the latest national test scores or test data for West Virginia that just came out this month. The data shows that West Virginian children are not showing proficient levels in their age group. Test scores have also dropped in reading and math since 2019. What does this data show and tell us about the current state of the education system here in West Virginia?
Yeah, the data from NAEP and the nation's report card is certainly concerning. I think there are two things to recognize. One is the results and impacts of the pandemic go far beyond the time outside of schools or the time on remote learning that students had. The impacts on students were even traumatic. And so what we're seeing as an impact goes more than what you'll see most of, which is, oh, this shows that students were out of school too much or whatever. You also have to realize that these students, it's not that they haven't learned anything, right? They just haven't learned at the same pace that students in 3 years ago or years before that learned. There's amazing things going on in schools, especially over the past 3 years, to even get us to this point. The work done by teachers and administrators and parents and staff really have gotten us to this point. We don't want the narrative about this to overshadow that. But the results are concerning. West Virginia has always ranked low in terms of proficiency. Those numbers have gone down. We also see real discrepancies between groups based on race, socioeconomic status, access to internet. And so we want to make sure that whatever we do continues to address those inequities.
Now, in this post-pandemic phase, there's a lot of concern about the children in the pandemic. What can teachers and administrators do to help students who are particularly in elementary school to improve their educational outcomes?
There's going to be a lot of resources and energy put into the kinds of recovery efforts that will try to address these gaps. My concern would be that too much of that will focus on a sort of back to the basics narrative that you'll sometimes see. The problem with that is we know that that is not how students learn best, math or reading specifically, and that actually might take away from the other kinds of things that should be going on in schools and not just focused on those core subjects. We see part of the inequities we see are because of a remediation culture in schools already, which have students only focused on procedural things and not things like critical thinking or advanced sort of study in the topics that students would be capable of if we didn't sort of hold them back and insist that they show those basic skills. My worry is, and I would hope that people can come up with other ideas that don't just focus on sort of drilling down into those basics with students, expecting that we're going to see results that are better than really results we've seen up to this point.
Now I want to shift into the teacher shortage facing the state. In an earlier story, we heard that a quarter of teachers in West Virginian classrooms are leaving before they hit their 4th year of experience. What is your research saying about why teachers are leaving the classroom?
Yeah, and it's not just new teachers, unfortunately. We're seeing more middle career teachers leaving. We're seeing late career teachers leaving for reasons other than retirement. And we're seeing more and more teachers who would even consider leaving teaching at higher levels than ever. I've been doing research with my colleague, Dr. Erin McHenry-Sorber. We're really trying to understand that problem, specifically in West Virginia and in rural contexts. You see a lot of things about pay and work conditions. I think the topic of teacher leadership, as I would call it, is also really important. What kind of voice do teachers have, not only in their own practice, but in the change that's happening in their schools and communities? We do not position teachers in ways that really value their expertise, and I think we see the toll that takes on their willingness to stay in the profession. We also know that rural schools face specific challenges to recruit and retain teachers, as people may or may not live near those schools. So there are efforts to try and imagine how to deal with that. It's a very uniquely rural and uniquely West Virginian problem. Dr. McHenry Sorver and I are conducting some survey research coming up this fall to try to better understand that problem.
Now, in 2018, we saw one of the largest teacher strikes in West Virginia since the 1990s. Now, does that strike in 2018 have any effect on the teacher shortage we're seeing today?
I don't know if we can say that there's a specific effect, but I think you see similar themes. So much of those work stoppage and strike action was around or framed around pay. At least that's was sort of the news narrative around it. But I think it really got to an issue deeper than that. Again, it had to do with how are educators valued in our system. And they aren't, and they continue not to be. They're asked to do more and more, especially in this post-pandemic time, in the face of these test results. And so we need to be really careful in terms of how we let that continue to slide down and see the same issues with staffing.
Now, with the teacher shortage, we have seen teachers with less experience step into the classroom. How has that impacted educational outcomes?
Yeah, we know generally that students who have teachers with less experience or less preparation may not be getting the same quality of education. Those teachers are also more inclined to leave because they struggle in their early years. In addition to people with fewer years of experience, we're also seeing teachers who have less preparation, and that's a problem we need to think about as well, as there's a focus on getting more and more people into the profession, but we need to make sure those people are prepared and supported to not just do a good job in the early years of their teaching, but to stay in the profession as well.
Now, is there a root cause causing people not to go into the teaching profession?
I think all these issues of, you see what you see. You see people leaving the profession. You see a profession that's not necessarily valued. You see working conditions that are getting tougher and tougher. And so in terms of new people coming into the profession, I think that certainly makes its mark. It's in some ways easier to get into teaching than it's ever been, but sometimes it's harder to get into teaching based on the program that you're moving through. We need to not only think about recruitment into the profession, that continues to be something worth pursuing, especially in rural spaces, but we also need to make sure we keep the teachers we actually have. That has ultimately a bigger impact on the broader educational system.
Now we have about 30 seconds left, so I want to ask one more final question. What can we do to reverse this trend of teachers leaving the field?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a plug to a project I'm a part of, which is called Mountaineer Mathematics Master Teachers. We bring teachers together, middle and high school math teachers across the state, 44 fellows across 29 counties, and really give them more of a voice. So I think this idea of how can teachers take more ownership and have more agency and improvement, we're going to start to see some gains in terms of how people stay in the profession and the job they're doing.
Well, Dr. Campbell, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for joining us and discussing these important issues.
Thank you.
Bailey, back to you.
Coming up next on West Virginia Today, we'll take you to Elkins, where the Mountain State Forest Festival has made its comeback after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID-19.
I'm Sean McAllister, and coming up on West Virginia Today, I'll take you to one of West Virginia's top tourist destinations and tell you about that industry's pandemic boom.
West Virginia University is a place where learning is an adventure, inside and outside. You'll become an innovator, a boundary breaker, an earth shaker. Choose your circle from 30,000 fellow mountaineers, and choose your path from hundreds of majors and minors. In a community that feels small, and you'll use this to get to class. You'll have room to find your people, your passions, and your purpose. Because we're a place where everyone fits. This is WVU. This is home.
In West Virginia, tourism is a billion-dollar industry.
That's right, Bailey. In 2019, before the pandemic, visitors to the Mountain State spent more than $4.5 billion here.
As COVID-19 hit, most businesses had to close their doors and find new ways to serve their customers. But outdoor recreation wasn't among them.
There were still challenges for towns that rely on tourists to bring in revenue. But as photojournalist Chase Hugert and I found out, tourism continued to thrive in West Virginia, even through the worst of the pandemic.
Bridge Day is one of the unique festivals in West Virginia that draws in tourists from across the country each year.
From Charlotte, North Carolina.
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Erie, PA.
Erie, PA.
876 feet above the New River, base jumpers, rappellers, and zipliners use the bridge as a base to descend into the gorge. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Bridge Day could draw as many as 100,000 people to Fayette County, where event coordinator Megan Weatherford says it's a great opportunity for the area to have this number of tourists back again.
We have gotten numerous phone calls and emails asking lots of questions from people who have never heard of Bridge Day, or this was their first Bridge Day. And so far, what we've seen just this morning, the numbers are much bigger than we have ever seen before.
For the past 2 years, this particular event has been on hold due to COVID, but the outdoor sports that it represents have not. In fact, more people than ever have made their way to Fayette County to experience what the West Virginia hills have to offer.
We really backed off on any events. What we did do, we focused on our core, which is whitewater rafting, hiking, mountain biking, rock climbing.
Tourism in West Virginia supported 47,000 jobs in 2021 and generated more than $790 million in local tax revenue as those visitors came to shops and restaurants like this one.
West Virginia's tourism spending is up by nearly 4% over pre-pandemic totals. And for Angie Bard, general manager of Pies and Pints in Fayetteville, that means her restaurant is seeing more business than ever before.
So when they designated the gorge, it just doubled. So we've been, since that, we're just need staff, keeping as many people fed as we can, just running, and don't have much of a downtime anymore, down season.
The turnout for Bridge Day is just one way to see that West Virginia's tourism industry is thriving. State officials say they expect to see the growth in the industry continue.
After 2 years, West Virginians are getting out of the house and experiencing some of the same activities they loved before COVID shut many of them down.
In fact, Sean, a Pew Research Center study found 21% of Americans have a renewed appreciation for social activities.
And the Elkins Forest Festival is no exception, Bailey. Thousands of people attended the week-long event in north central West Virginia. Reporter Carly Miner and photojournalist Emily Kessler have more.
The Mountain State Forest Festival, originating in 1930, is back for its annual gathering. Randolph County and the city of Elkins welcomed more than 75,000 visitors to their streets, offering tourists an opportunity to explore the area.
2022 has been fantastic. There's some unique glitches that we haven't had to deal with before, but we've managed through them, and so far we're having a fantastic festival.
Morris says he'll do anything to get someone on the forest trail, even if their greatest fear is heights.
I mean, look around. You've got everybody out because we've been stuck in homes for how many years now because of COVID, but now everybody's able to get out again.
After nearly 2 years of wearing masks and social isolation, Samantha Pete, marketing director of Elkins Randolph County Convention and Visitors Bureau, says events like this are a perfect opportunity to get to know your community all over again.
It's just really exciting, and people are really excited to get out and participate, whereas maybe they weren't in the past. It definitely has brought the community together a bit more.
The pandemic has caused great threat to the prosperity and well-being of the United States since the Great Depression. But with a gorgeous view like this, it's hard to remember that the virus is even going on. In fact, experts say we will not reach full recovery until well into the future.
But for these festival goers, they have one thing on their minds: enjoying a return to some sense of normalcy.
That's what benefits the community, because it's not just for kids only, it's for the whole community.
One of the largest and oldest festivals in West Virginia, situated in mountains rising 4,500 feet around it. The Forest Festival allows community members and visitors alike a glimpse of fall in the West Virginia mountains. But while hiking isn't for everyone, the festival has something to offer to everyone: concerts, food, amusement rides, and games, making it a perfect family adventure. The crowded streets are a sign that the economy is bouncing back after the pandemic caused historical drops in output in almost all major economies.
We had a bit of a financial hit, but I think also our numbers are rising and honestly are a bit better than what they were pre-pandemic.
Forest Festival officials and attendees alike say they're hoping the future holds nothing but happy vibes and autumn leaves.
Thanks, Carly and Emily, for that report. The Forest Festival has been going on for 92 years and has only ever been canceled once before, for a stretch of 7 years from 1941 to 1948 during World War II.
It's homecoming season in high schools and colleges across West Virginia, but a homecoming event for LGBTQ+ students is moving off Morgantown High School's campus after the county school board banned pride flags in classrooms. Morgantown's First Presbyterian Church hosted Homecoming Out, a night of music, dancing, food, and games for LGBTQ middle and high school students in Mon County. It's the first time this event has been held since 2020 due to the pandemic. A Gallup poll shows the number of Americans who identify as LGBTQ is growing, currently at 7%. But a Yale School of Medicine study says 4 of 5 Americans have not yet come out. Organizers say they hope the event gives students a safe space to fully be themselves.
Bailey, you covered the Mon County Board of Education's decision to ban pride flags in their schools. And the next day, students from Morgantown High School held a massive walkout.
Yes, Sean, they did, and that didn't surprise me at all. After being at that board meeting, you could see all the passionate students and faculty who were really just trying to make a difference.
It's a story we're going to continue following, but that's going to do it for us on this edition of West Virginia Today. I'm Sean McAllister.
And I'm Bailey Tucker. You can watch us streaming at 11:30 a.m. this Saturday on the KDKA website. You can also check us out on West Virginia Public Broadcasting on Friday night at 8:30 p.m.
As well as watch our show on the City of Morgantown's Public Access channel and the HD Media website. Thanks for watching West Virginia Today.